Remember the 90s?
Are you a 90s kid? Are you gonna prove your credibility by being alive during a decade? You don't remember that?
That's with the hostility.
Sorry, people get really, really excited about being 90s
Gonna
kids.
watch from Looper today. The real reason these 90s cartoons were canceled.
Not the lies we've been told all these years. I'm just mad today.
The 1990s were a golden age of television animation, but cartoons are a business, and even the most beloved shows were sometimes canceled to make room for more profitable programming.
Animaniacs, they're coming back.
Here are the real reasons
Netflix.
behind a few of those controversial cartoon cancellations.
I never watched that.
After debuting on MTV in
Beavis and
1993, millions of kids and adults watched the two giggling moronic metalheads of Beavis and Butthead determine which bands were cool and which sucked. That is, when they weren't terrorizing their neighbors, teachers, and Burger World customers. Not everybody liked Beavis and Butthead. Politicians called out the show for encouraging antisocial behavior, and one family blamed Beavis' pyromania for leading to a deadly house fire. Nothing stuck, though,
What?
and Beavis and Butthead remained the world's favorite idiots. However, after 200 episodes and the feature film Beavis and Butthead Do America, creator Mike Judge decided it was time to end it. Speaking to Los Angeles Times,
Breaking
Judge
Bad
said,
would not have
I
survived
actually
in the
wanted to
90s."
stop a little sooner. After the second season, I thought, how are we going to do this anymore? I was completely burned out. Judge wound up sticking around for 7 seasons. In 1997, he moved on to other projects, like his Fox animated series King of the Hill.
Man.
Second season
Three
burned out.
old-timey
Got 5 more
cartoon
left.
characters named Yakko, Wacko, and Dot Warner, who were
No
more
wonder
or
that guy's
less imprisoned
done so
in the
much
water
work.
tower on the Warner Brothers movie lot. Animaniacs was a cartoon quickly embraced by both children and adult audiences alike. Debuting in 1993,
special.
Animaniacs satirized cartoon tropes while being completely self-aware, offering up innuendo-laced dialogue and biting social commentary among the kid-friendly laughs.
We need it back.
Animaniacs ran for 5 seasons and spun off its most popular side characters, Pinky and the Brain, before Kids WB ended the show in 1998. According to creator
Pinky and
Tom
the
Ruger,
Brain,
the end
man.
came due to
Yeah.
a business decision regarding another, much cheaper kid show, a Japanese anime series with massive commercial potential. Ruger explained, Kids WB was handed Pokemon for free and it pulled down big numbers, so then they wanted everything for free.
Aw.
Animaniacs cost Warner Brothers too much money to make and promote, so off it went. At first glance, Todd McFarlane's animated Spawn series looked like a show for kids. But Spawn was based off of McFarlane's top-selling comic series, an extremely dark and violent story about a former assassin who gets killed by his boss, sent to hell, and ends up working for Satan.
God, look how
Hardly
great it was
family-friendly
animated.
material.
You made a deal with Mamboja.
It really does look like a comic.
You cut a deal for your soul.
Spawn ran for 3 seasons on HBO and won an Emmy Award
Right,
for Outstanding
HBO.
Animated Program. The show's 3rd season was a bust,
think it's on
however,
HBO now.
and HBO's
HBO now,
animation
right
division was withering on the vine. After enduring numerous production difficulties, the show earned a quiet cancellation in 1999.
Let's just go
Batman
on
the
cancel
Animated
without letting
Series
people know.
represented a breakthrough in television animation and comic book adaptation. Moody, quiet, and literally dark, it demonstrated
They should bring
there
this
was a
show back.
market for dramatic
Oh,
superhero
yeah.
content that could appeal to children and adults. This Batman was so highly regarded that Fox aired the show in prime time for a while. And in
Really? I didn't know
1995,
that.
the studio released Batman,
Hey,
Mask
kids.
of the Phantasm, in
10 p.m.
theaters. Voice actor Kevin Conroy even tops many lists of the best Batman actors. However, in 1995, after 3 years and 85 episodes, the series left the air. According to Conroy, even though the audience was still invested and the actors were willing to continue, the creators had run out of ideas and wanted to end the show on a high note.
They're out of
They
comics.
didn't want to compromise on the quality of what they'd had and start creating kind of silly stories.
Fortunately for Batman fans, the story ideas didn't dry up for long. A sequel series to the beloved show debuted a couple years after its cancellation, bringing back most of the animated series cast and crew,
Adventures
including
of
Conroy.
Batman and
The
Robin.
new Batman Adventures debuted on Kids
New
WB
Batman
in September of 1997.
Oh.
Originally created
I
for
thought I was
ABC,
familiar
The
with that
Critic
one.
was an animated sitcom about a snobby, hapless New York City movie reviewer named Jay Sherman. He hates most movies he sees, tries to raise his son as best as he can,
Wasn't
and
he in The
fends off his
Simpsons?
wacky family.
Yeah, I
According
think
to John
he
Lovitz, who
showed up
provided
there
the
at some
voice of
point.
Jay, we did it for ABC, and ABC goes, we love it, and then they canceled it after 7 shows. Following its ABC cancellation, The Critic moved over to Fox and aired immediately after The Simpsons, where creators Al Jean and Mike Reiss had previously worked as writers and showrunners. According to Lovitz, The Critic brought in excellent ratings for Fox, retaining 90% of the huge
Yeah.
Simpsons audience. And yet, in 1994, Fox pulled the plug. Despite a solid performance, an executive at the network thought the 8:30 p.m. Sunday time slot could be better used by a new show. Gene explained. The guy who ran the network then, John Matoyan, just didn't like the show. He preferred a show that no one remembers called House of Buggin' with John Leguizamo. The sketch comedy debuted in early 1995 in the place of the Critic and lasted a mere 10 episodes.
That was a show.
In the fall of 1994, the
Gargoyles!
programming
This
block
opening
mixed things up
sequence
by
is
adding
burned in
Gargoyles
my
to its
memory.
lineup of silly cartoons and wacky adventures. This contemplative and sometimes violent show is stylistically different from its Disney afternoon predecessors like Goof Troop, Tailspin, and DuckTales.
Yeah.
Similar in tone and approach to Batman the Animated Series, Gargoyles concerns the day-to-day activities of magical beings who protect New York City at night. The characters were architectural gargoyles by day, imbued with the spirits of 1,000-year-old Scottish folk creatures. Gargoyles
Then it
ran
had
for
a
3
detective.
years and 78 episodes, but was ultimately canceled because it wasn't a mega hit. According to the creator Greg Weisman, it didn't perform up to expectations. Disney really wanted it to outdo Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and it failed to succeed.
If it's not bigger than Mighty
Angry
Morphin
Beavers
Power
tells the story
Rangers,
of two
then
beaver
no.
bachelors
It's
named
not
Dag
bigger than
and
a
Nora,
show
who
that's
live
based
in an
in
Oregon
other
forest.
media.
By 2001, 4 seasons
Never
had
seen
aired,
Angry
and
Beavers.
cancellation seemed imminent. According to
Did you?
co-creator
Yeah,
Keith
ready.
Kachorik,
I have.
we
Not-
were
not all of
significantly
it, but
over
I've definitely
budget,
seen some
behind
episodes.
schedule, and had generally worn out our welcome.
Mother.
Realizing that the end was near, Kachorik and the rest of the Angry Beaver staff decided to go out on a blaze of glory. Kachorik and show staff writer Roger Eschbacher wrote a script for a series finale episode called Bye Bye Beavers, an installment equal parts dark and meta. Dag and Norb come to realize that they are not real, but cartoons, and that their show is about to be canceled, which means they will cease to exist. At first, Nickelodeon signed off on the script,
Dude,
but when executives noticed all the jokes making fun of Nickelodeon, they reversed course.
no.
According to writer Michael Wright, they saw it all put together and said, wait, this makes us look bad, so they killed it. The script was never animated, but a recording of the show's voice actors reading it was
Yes.
made, which
Oh,
leaked
cool.
online in 2006. By 1995, Comedy Central was
I wanna hear that.
experimenting with
Yeah.
original programming, and one of its first new shows was a low-budget animated series with largely improvised dialogue called Dr. Katz, Professional Therapist.
Doc, does it bother you when I touch your face like this? A little bit. Is that inappropriate? Inappropriate for me to hold my hand there for the rest of therapy?
Nope, it's not appropriate.
Comedian Jonathan Katz voiced a therapist whose clients were all stand-up comedians, who'd lay on his couch and relate neuroses that were really just bits from their stage routines. He also had a lazy
How
adult son
interesting.
named Ben and attempted to have a social life. Ironically, it's Dr. Katz's own success that led to its demise. The show helped put Comedy Central on the TV map, showing that the channel had a unique sensibility and was a home for animated
We should
TV.
do other
2
things.
years after its debut, South Park premiered on Comedy Central and became a monster hit,
How
particularly with young male
strange.
viewers. Dr. Katz attracted an older audience, and since it wasn't in the demographic that the now South
Therapy isn't
Park-obsessed network was trying to lure, it got canceled.
Strange.
With the arrival of child-friendly cable networks like Nickelodeon and the popularity of syndicated shows, the ratings for once-beloved Saturday morning cartoons started to slip. NBC President Brandon Tartikoff analyzed the budgets and found that the average Saturday morning cartoon cost $300,000 to produce. Tartikoff and his team realized that it would be
money.
much cheaper to get rid of the cartoons in favor of news shows or sports. In 1991, NBC signed a long-term contract with Notre Dame to air the college's games on Saturday mornings. It cost the network about $1 million a game, which was still cheaper than programming 6 hours of cartoons every week. Plus, it could charge higher advertising rates for football than it could for kids stuff. In 1992,
What a
NBC switched to a lineup that
strong
included The Today
shift.
Show, football
Yeah.
games, and a block of low-budget sitcoms
What?
like Saved by the Bell, eliminating the entire 1991 to 1992 Saturday morning cartoon
That's
schedule.
crazy.
Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos.
So
about
long
our
story
favorite shows
short,
coming soon.
money.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel
It's
and hit
expensive to
here's why
animate.
it was all canceled. Was money. I like the inclination of some of them, kind of like Beavis and Butthead and Batman the Animated Series, of we also canceled because we just felt that our best times were behind us and that we don't want to diminish in quality.
Said what we need to say.
But majority of these were money. We're not making enough. We want to make more. We want to save.
We want to spend less. We want to charge more for ads.
Yeah.
We want to pay nothing for production.
It's pretty nuts to hear some of the history, though. To think of how NBC shifted completely away from animation on the Saturday morning cartoons for football and then live action shows like
Alright.
Saved by the Bell, those blocks. It just seems so jarring, and I'm surprised it panned out for them to just take such a drastic shit like that. They didn't even supplement it with a kid's show or an animated thing. It was just No, we're gonna do football. Like,
Yeah,
what a weird,
football
weird shift.
or news or something, and it's funny to me because like that was the bane of my existence back in the day when I would come home on a weekday and they wouldn't be playing The Simpsons because of baseball. But like Saturday morning, I guess we're about to find out in the comments or whatever, but like who's up Saturday morning like college football first thing in the AM?
And I think this is a strong list because it is titled Popular 90s Cartoons.
And these are pretty iconic.
And these are popular. I'm surprised we're not bringing in the viewership because, you know, when you're a kid, you're not really thinking about viewership and stuff like that. Gargoyles, quite a influential, monumental series for its time, and I think it's still a pretty damn good show. I would say it's on par with Batman the Animated Series.
It's one that gets brought up every few years as like shows you ought to revisit.
The reasoning for cancellation on Gargoyles, well, we wanted to outperform Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Like, so what?
So
That's
get
like
yourself a Power Rangers then.
It's like, damn, can you imagine this mentality today? I mean, I'm sure it still exists in the comparison numbers with the amount of TV shows there are now. I mean, before there was like a few cable shows, or was like primarily network television,
public access,
and now with streaming, the abundance of shows on cable channels, there are so many shows, and it's like, if it's bringing in viewers, keep making it. You know?
Yeah. Well, and this was kind of fascinating to me because they had a range of cartoons from children's level to more adult-oriented animation, and that is one thing that we talk about here and there is that animation that's not aimed at kids, or at least incorporates kids, isn't as served niche here. And it's funny to me because like half the shows on this list were more adult pitch shows like Dr. Katz or The Critic or Spawn. And it's funny to me to look back, you know, note that at least a few of these shows did have, you know, a more adult sensibility, and maybe that's also probably why they weren't able to raise as much money. Like Gargoyles, you had the kids and whatnot, but for the stuff that was aimed at older audiences, I would imagine, I guess, that unless you're getting, you know, the younger 20-somethings, you know, something like they said Dr. Katz wasn't as popular as something like South Park, and I'm like, yeah, I can see that. It sounds like something you'd put like late at night on Adult Swim now.
It's just such an ironic conclusion for Dr. Katz. We were able to determine that we have an audience here in a special niche market for adult-oriented comedy and animation format, and then it spawns South Park. Then that leads to it being canceled. That's so, like, that was kind of my concern of what would happen when Family Guy came back with its insane popularity, and if it would wipe out The Simpsons, if they were like, well, Family Guy is just way more popular now, and so we should cancel it. Because like it seems like with the discussion with The Simpsons too has been quite frequently like we're kind of always concerned that we might not get revived, you know?
Yeah.
And Simpsons still going strong. Family Guy's an interesting subject to bring up, I think, because a big part of what brought Family Guy back, as that show was canceled, was the DVD sales. The studio saw like we're making a lot of money off of these DVD sales, and there seems to be a big fan base for it now. So it makes me wonder if some of these shows that were canceled, if they did have their DVD releases at that like close to the time of cancellation, and if they saw an uptick in sales and then maybe further expansion of the fan base post-cancellation, if something like Gargoyles might have come back on the air, because we are in this weird day and age where we do revive series sometimes really fast, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I remember that was canceled, and then like a couple days later it was picked up on a different network. It's such a strange time to live in, but it's weird to think of how some of these shows might have been saved today if they were canceled now for weird reasons, and then if they got saved on some other platform. Animaniacs, that was one of my favorite shows growing up. Pinky and the Brain was more my jam, but I definitely watched both those series. No, they're bringing back Animaniacs. Of course, there's a little bit of trepidation. Will it still work? But I feel like Pinky and the Brain would be more challenging to make work, whereas Animaniacs worked off of its topical commentary of the climate that it was living in, and so I feel like they could do something with it today and perhaps even make it a little bit more mature, since it did have a little bit of its irreverence
and meta qualities too, which is even more popular nowadays. And if I recall correctly, like you could even learn a thing or two watching like Animaniacs or especially Hysteria. And so like I think especially shows like that have some kind of, not to be boring, but an educational benefit are more worth keeping on hand, which is why like something like Animaniacs, I was like, oh, that's a bummer that you gave it the axe.
And I've been opting for them bringing, and like, we're hearing rumors of X-Men possibly coming back, the animated series, or they're starting a brand new one. Batman the Animated Series is one I've been opting for. Like, they should try to bring that back. I mean, if the creators, the ones who helmed that series, really don't feel like they have anything left in the tank for that show, I guess so. think that with the animation quality that it had back then, how great it would probably look even more striking today. There's tons of Batman stories to continuously pull from. Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill, still voice Joker and Batman in a lot of different shows, adaptations, video games. They're still in the game. So I think that Batman the Animated Series would be a wonderful revival, and especially for like HBO Max with the strange reception that streaming service has been having lately. Yeah. I imagine if I went through the comments on this, it would be Gargoyles and Batman the Animated Series, you know? And for like Beavis and Butthead, did Mike Judge get an ending? I never finished King of the Hill. Did that have an ending?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it did.
I mean, that kind of just is a testament to Mike Judge's great writing ability, that even if his heart's not in it, it still does such a great job.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, I mean, if Beavis and Butthead ran for 7 seasons and King of the Hill ran for 14, yeah, he and his writing staff, and at least I haven't seen a ton of Beavis and Butthead comprehensively, but King of the Hill, at least in my eyes, managed to maintain a very consistent tone of voice and a pretty consistent quality over its life, and they said that thing that the Simpsons guys have said, where it was basically like, every season we thought it was the end, and then they just kind of kept renewing us.
Yeah.
Until the Cleveland show came around. Props to Mike Judge, because like that, he's so busy. He makes so much stuff, you know. So
he makes a lot of shows.
Yeah.
He's had like 3 successful TV shows. It's pretty crazy.
And movies.
3 successful movies.
And a podcast. 3 successful podcasts.
All right, guys. Well, what is your favorite 90s animated show? Leave your thoughts down below. Subscribe to Looper if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to The Real Rejects. Click that notification bell. Last but not least, Gene Jeter. Wanted to shout out our homeboy here who lives in the East Coast, I believe in New York, where right now...
Don't touch your face.
It's very scary over there. Like in all of America, New York's definitely got it the worst. Gene is doing his best to keep up the positive vibes and the positive attitude. He is staying very safe, and on his channel, he put together a nearly hour-long video, but it's music. It's music to quarantine and chill. Part 2. Gave it a listen while I was writing some messages. Probably listened to like half of it, and honestly, it was some very relaxing tunes, helped calm down my thoughts, my brain waves. Quite a delight. So guys, if you're looking for a great quarantine and chill set list to listen to, I highly recommend Gene Jeter's video. There's a link in the description box. Thank you so much, Gene, for putting this together, and in the midst of this pandemic, in the midst of you living on the East Coast where it's really nuts, I'm so happy to know that there's someone over there who's doing their best to keep the positive vibes alive. Thank you for being you.
Love you, Gene.